of The Rob Kendall Show. Check out our website, robkendallshow.com. Live broadcasts, archive podcasts, and transcripts of some of our favorite segments each day. Find us on YouTube. Just search Rob Kendall Show. And while you're there, please sure to make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We've got a ton of stuff to get to today. A ton of stuff. And we start with some breaking news that came down this morning on a topic we covered yesterday. And that is that Greg Ballard, former mayor of Indianapolis, Republican mayor of Indianapolis, two-term mayor of Indianapolis, has now declared he is running for Indiana Secretary of State as an independent candidate. Now, we did a deep dive on this yesterday because Independent Indiana, see where we're going with this, released a poll that was conducted in November that showed if Greg Ballard got in the race and was running against the incumbent, Diego Morales, the Republican, and the perceived Democrat frontrunner, Beau Bayh, he would not only be very competitive, but he would pull a lot of votes from the Republican, Diego Morales. In fact, that hypothetical poll showed Beau Bayh at 31.5%, the Democrat, Diego Morales, the Republican, at 28.5%, and Greg Ballard, the independent, at, I believe it was 23.8%. So what do we make of all this? How does this affect the upcoming election season? And is this a new day for Indiana politics and government? Let's get right into it. Let's start with the announcement itself. Look, Greg Ballard is going to be a force in this race. He's going to get the signatures, and he's going to be an effective candidate, especially in population centers, primarily right here in the heart of Indiana, Marion County, the 9 donut counties. He's going to be a very effective candidate. Not maybe so much from the standpoint of effective that he can win, effective that he can keep other people from winning. And we've long talked about that I'm a big supporter of independent candidates running in the state of Indiana. I think the more people we have on the ballot, the more diverse set of ideas we have in front of the public, the better it's going to make everyone, the more interest it's going to create in our elections, and the more people, hopefully, it will get involved in the process. So I am a full supporter of Greg Ballard running as an independent for Secretary of State in Indiana. Now, how many signatures does he have to get? We did the math this morning on State House Happenings, which we recorded. Hopefully it'll be posted later today. Starting next week, we anticipate that it will now be a video broadcast for you to consume State House Happenings. We're optimistic about that. One final week of the audio-only podcast, and we spent the whole show, in fact, talking about this topic. We did the math. There were roughly, so here's how an independent candidate works in order to get on the ballot. Because the Democrats, the Republicans, they have automatic ballot access. Whoever their nominee is from their convention, automatically on the ballot. Same thing with the Libertarians. Independent candidates are different. They have to get signatures. And the amount of signatures they have to get is equal across the state of Indiana to 2% of the total votes cast in the previous Secretary of State's race. So whatever the total amount of votes were cast in 2022 in the Indiana Secretary of State's race between Diego Morales, Destiny Wells, and Jeff Moore, the Libertarian, 2% of that number is the amount of verified, and we'll get to that in a second, signatures Greg Ballard has to get. I added it all up. There were roughly 1.85 million votes cast in that election. Public school math tells me you multiply that number by 0.02, and dun-da-da-da, you come up with roughly 37,000 signatures in order for Greg Ballard to get on the ballot. Now, in a state of 7 million people, 37,000 signatures might not sound like much. But trust me, as someone who has once gathered signatures for a candidate running for statewide office, it is a very long and involved process. Because when we say signatures, it has to be a verified signature. Now, I know you're thinking to yourself, like, Rob, what are you talking about? Verified signature. Verified signature means the signature and name, and most importantly, address, have to match the address at which the person is registered to vote, and the person actually has to be registered to vote. So you may get someone to sign Hey, would you like to vote for Greg Ballard running for Indiana Secretary of State? He needs your signature to get on the ballot. Sure, I'll sign. And the person signs and they're not registered to vote. Sounds weird, happens all the time. The other thing is the person may be registered to vote at an address different from where they live. Weird as it sounds, also happens all the time. Those signatures would not count. So in order to comfortably ensure you're going to get the proper amount of signatures, you usually need to get at least 10%, probably 15 above your total for the signatures that'll be thrown out. Now, this is one of the reasons I love this new format that we have, because I can do deep dives on this stuff and I can educate you and inform you and motivate you like never before. Like, I never would have been able to do a deep dive on how you run for public office as an independent candidate. And this is super important. This stuff is really important because Greg Ballard, and we'll talk about it here in a second, has an opportunity to change as a collective in Indiana, whether he wins or not. So if you say I need to get 10% on top of the verified number, let's say the number's 37,000, you need to get roughly 41,000 signatures to feel comfortable turning those in. Now, once these signatures are turned in, anybody has an opportunity to object to the signatures. They have an opportunity to say, I'm calling that signature into doubt. I'm questioning that signature. I'm challenging that signature. You guys may remember the most high-profile version of this was in 2016 when it was alleged Todd Young did not get the signatures in the 1st Congressional District and still somehow magically ended up on the ballot. There were many articles written about that. You can go back and read on that for yourself. Not going to spend a lot of time on that today. But trust me, the major party candidates are going to be challenging any signature possible. They're going to be pouring through those signatures. So there's going to be no room for error, especially Diego Morales does not want him on the ballot if indeed he is the nominee. By the way, the signatures, they have to be in by June the 30th. So that gives Greg Ballard roughly 4 months to get the 37,000-ish verified signatures. Now, this is not something you can just do by standing outside of a Walmart. In order to pull this off, and again, I know this because I've been a part of a team who did these signatures successfully, you need to hire people who know how to do this. And there are varying dollar amounts based on kind of who you hire, what they charge in order to do this. Usually it's somewhere between $5 to $10 a signature at best. Let's just go on the high side of that. He's going to probably end up paying about $10 a signature. There's professional organizations. That's what they do. They go out, you pay them, they get signatures. Every verified one, you give them an agreed to dollar amount. If you accept at $10 a signature and you say it's 37,000 signatures, that means he would need to raise roughly $370,000 if he hires a firm to do all the legwork to get on the ballot. That's a lot of money. And so look, there's so many interesting questions to this, which is why I'm leading the show up with this. This is like Christmas morning for political nerds, because there's so many questions that get raised out of Greg Ballard now trying to get on the ballot. So if you accept, he's going to need roughly $370,000 to get on the ballot, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on who he actually has running his campaign, who's actually working for him. Maybe it could be less. Let's just round it down and say, just pick a nice round number, $300,000. Let's just say he needs $300,000 to a firm to get signatures. Where's that money going to come from? This is the question that I've been asking. And yesterday, when we talked about that poll from Independent Indiana that I asked, where's that money going to come from? Because when people give to the Secretary of State's office, and look, this is not every person, but a lot of people who give, they're not running a soup kitchen. They're not giving out of the goodness of their heart. They're giving because they want something. Because the Secretary of State oversees a lot. Elections, businesses, auto dealers, and a whole bunch more. It's a very important office that usually, in the past, has just sort of flown under the radar, doesn't garner a lot of media attention, but it's very important. And so the usual suspects, this is what's going to be fascinating to me. The usual suspects that give to establishment candidates like Greg Ballard, which that's what Greg Ballard is. He was a very moderate, some even call him liberal Republican. He did a fine job on some aspects of being mayor of Indianapolis, certainly better than what we have now. But he's not a conservative. He's not a conservative. He's not right. He's very, very center at best. The people who would normally give that donor class, the establishment class, the Chamber of Commerce class, who might be Greg Ballard's go-to donor base, I'm going to be fascinated to see what these people do. Because if you give to Ballard and Diego wins, why would Diego give you access? I mean, we know Diego's an access guy, right? Look at the contracts he's given, the no-bid contracts to people who just conveniently have given a bunch of money to his campaign. Probably the world's biggest coincidence. So we know Diego's an access guy. By the way, we still don't know who paid for India. This may be my most favorite part of Greg Ballard running for Secretary of State, is we might finally find out who paid for India. That 10-day trip Diego Morales took to India. You remember that? We've talked about that numerous times before. He disappeared. Nobody knew where he was. Blew off a budget session with the General Assembly. Finally comes out he's in India on an economic development mission, which of course is ridiculous because he has no economic development responsibilities. Refused to say who paid for the trip. We know a guy with a contract with his office went with him. That guy was bragging about selling visa access in India on Facebook. We know Diego refused to say who paid. Then finally came out and claimed he paid the person back who paid. And we said, great, who'd you pay back? I'm not telling you. Well, can you show us proof that you paid? No. Well, then he claimed he was going to show proof, but then he wouldn't show any receipts or anything that verified what he was paying for or who he paid the check to. The guy's ridiculous. Point is, I think maybe we're finally going to find out who paid for Diego to go to India and what they paid for. But getting back to Ballard, is he going to be able to get money from his go-to donor base with the idea of, hey, if Diego wins and I give to Ballard, I'm cut off potentially, looming over people's heads? That's a really important thing because Ballard is going to have to raise a lot of money in order to pull off an effective campaign. Because while people may know him in central Indiana, in Du Bois County, in Vanderburgh County, in Lake County, in Allen County, in Jeffersonville, in Clark County. If you don't know what I just did, I just hit Fort Wayne, Jeffersonville, Evansville, the region. They're not going to know who he is. I mean, the political people may know who he is. But in terms of, am I going to vote for this person? They got to know who he is. That means he's going to have to raise millions, literally millions. I said 10 million was the number you got to raise to run an effective campaign as an independent candidate. So we'll see what he can do with that. What do the Republicans do? That may be the most interesting thing of all. What do the Republicans do at their convention? Because let's face it, the people that are convention delegates, they know who these people are. They know the stuff they do. They know, in the case of Diego, all the crap he's pulled. And in the past, they've just kind of ignored it. The establishment has ignored it. Kind of the delegates have ignored it. The state house has ignored it. I mean, think about how hard we pressed people to get us information, and nobody would help us. Nobody would help us. Remember, we took the stuff over to the state house and dropped all the letters off to all the statewide office holders begging for help, and nobody would help us. Everybody knows what Diego is. Everybody just hands it at arm's length. Hey, not my problem. Not my problem. Not my problem to deal with. Well, it is now. Everybody knows the sort of ads Beau Bayh is going to run. And by the way, Beau Bayh will raise the $10 million. That $10 million that Ballard is going to have to raise, Beau Bayh is going to raise it easy. Like, I need more rich friends like Beau Bayh has. Even John Mellencamp wrote him a check. So what will the Republicans do? What will they do if indeed Greg Ballard gets those signatures, which, by the way, they're going to have to make that choice before June 30th. The convention is in June, before June 30th, I believe, in Fort Wayne. Are they going to stay with Diego Morales, who they know is a horribly flawed candidate, is just made for to have television ads across the state run against him. Who knows the stuff that we don't even know about associated with Diego? Newsflash, the Bayhs will know. They'll figure it out. $10 million buys you a lot of access, buys you a lot of television time. Are the Republicans finally going to take serious the idea of dropping Diego Morales? Because, look, if you run David Shelton, the Knox County clerk, who is challenging Diego at convention. Now, I don't know. Maybe there's a bunch of skeletons in Shelton's closet. Don't know. But at least on paper, at least publicly, he's no muss, no fuss, no drama, really boring. Love you, David, but you're really boring. But maybe that's enough now. He's super competent. Just like Daniel Elliott, Elise Nashal, the comptroller. The Republicans should want to make this a boring election because it's a Republican state. Getting rid of Diego Morales takes a huge, huge portion of not only Beau Bayh's campaign, but also, to a big extent, Greg Ballard's campaign out the window. Ballard's running on getting rid of partisanship. The video that he posted today on his new Twitter account. Running is getting rid of partisanship, running on competency, running on doing what's right, finding that middle of the road for everybody. That's targeted at Diego Morales. Greg Ballard is running against Diego Morales. And if you get rid of Diego Morales and you put some quiet, competent, non-controversial figure in there, it blows the whole campaign up for both Bayh and Ballard. The question is, will the Republican delegates play it smart? Because Diego's great. Look, Diego's great going to these Lincoln Day dinners, unless the ones we show up to. Then he had a total meltdown at that one, the Clay County Lincoln Day. But Diego's great going to these Lincoln Day dinners where nobody challenges him, handing people plates, peddling bullcrap. He's great at that. A lot of these delegates eat it up. The question is, will the delegates play smart? And what will the actual Republican Party do? Will they get involved now? Because trust me, they don't want to lose this office. Look, I don't think there's any scenario in which Greg Ballard can actually win the election. I don't think that exists. But I'll talk about why he's so important in just a second. But there is certainly a scenario where he pulls enough votes that Diego Morales doesn't win if he's the nominee, that Beau Bayh does win. And that would be a disaster for the Republicans. Because once you get in there, once a Democrat gets in there, that Democrat can open up all the doors. We saw this happen when Glenda Ritz got in there with Tony Bennett, secretary or superintendent. It was called superintendent back then. It's not called superintendent anymore. But the education superintendent. And that was a big embarrassment and big drama for the Republicans when they got into the servers and looked at what was going on. I can't imagine what you're going to find if a Democrat gets in there with Diego's office. Don't know. But you'll probably get a good idea of what went on and who it went on with. And that should probably scare the hell out of the Republicans in the State House and that are running Indiana government. So will the Republican Party now, through their power brokers, will the Republican Party, through their donors, start putting pressure to make a choice to get rid of Diego Morales at the convention? They know what he is. It's not like it's in doubt. The repeated bizarre at best behavior, it's not like they're not fully aware of it. Nobody just wants to touch it. Nobody wants to do anything about it. Nobody wants to stand up and do what's right. All right. What is success for Greg Ballard? Look, I'll say this right now. We call it as we see it. Greg Ballard cannot win this election. There's no way Greg Ballard can get to the 33 or 34%. I don't see it. But I don't think that should be judged as success. I think Greg Ballard has a real opportunity to change Indiana politics and government forever. All he's got to do is get enough votes as an independent candidate to keep the Republican from winning. If he gets 15, 20, 25%, look, I think realistically 20-ish% is probably going to be his cap. I could be wrong. Maybe I'll be totally surprised. Maybe he'll run the greatest campaign ever, and I'll be blown away. But if he got 20%, that would be a resounding success. a resounding success. And if it cost Diego Morales the office, it would put independent candidates on the map. It would put third parties on the map, and it would inspire new people to run. And that's the big thing. And that's been one of the focus of Independent Indiana, who is, I think, behind a lot of this, certainly the polling that came out. Greg Ballard's a great get for them. In terms of people that independent group could realistically get, or independent supporters could realistically get to run, he's an A+ by what was out there and what would actually do it. Short of you getting some uber rich guy, I'm talking like some guy who could spend $30-40 million and not miss it, Greg Ballard's a great get for them. And if he runs an effective campaign and gets somewhere in that 15 to 20% vote total, and it costs the Republican election, now everybody wakes up. Now everybody wakes up. What happens after that if you start getting good people at all levels of government to run for public office and start costing Republicans some of these elections for Republicans who don't behave like Republicans? We got a whole new ball game if that were to happen. Now, that's a big if. He's not even on the ballot yet. He's not even on the ballot. And by the way, I'm not saying I think he will get the signatures, but it would not surprise me if he doesn't. It's a huge ask. I can't imagine Greg Ballard would get into a race where he wasn't sure he could at least get the signatures. But it's a huge ask. This is great for transparency. This is great for excitement in our elections. It's great for us. Gives us a whole bunch of stuff to talk about now. And so it really changes the game in many ways for what was kind of shaping up to be a rather boring election season. I'm all for it. I love that Greg Ballard's running. I think it's phenomenal. And by the way, here's one other thing that's very important. And this might be the most important thing of all. Whoever wins a county in the Secretary of State's race, their party gets the election board. This is a big deal that nobody really talks about. This is why our show is so valuable. We'll tell you about it. Whoever wins an election, their party gets the election board. So the election board, your local election board, 3 people, typically 2 of them are Republican or Democrat. Whoever wins, one of them is the minority party. Now, it's not whoever wins the state. It's whoever wins that county. So like in Marion County, Destiny Wells wins the Secretary of State's vote in 2022. Democrats control the election board. In all the donut counties, Diego wins. I think that's right. And so the Republicans control those election boards. What happens if Greg Ballard wins? We were talking about this at State House Happenings, and I think Abdul is getting into researching this now. What happens if an independent wins? Who controls the election board then? Kind of uncharted territory. And the other part of this, and nobody's talking about, the biggest loser of all of this will likely end up being the Libertarians. Because the Libertarians have to get 2% of the vote in order to have ballot access. The ballot access for your political party is judged by the Secretary of State's race. If your Secretary of State candidate does not get 2% of the vote statewide, you no longer have ballot access. The Libertarians are in real danger of losing ballot access because oftentimes, and I love my Libertarian friends, but they really struggled outside of Rainwater and to some extent Jeff Moore. But really outside of that, Rupert many, many years ago, they've really struggled to put candidates forward that can get above that 3% voter total. And they did not capitalize on the immense success that Rainwater had in 2020. They didn't turn that into a statewide apparatus that was really to be, feared or thought about. The Libertarians, what Ballard is doing now is what I thought the Libertarians were going to become after Rainwater. I thought after Rainwater's success, where he gets 345,000 votes, it was 11.5% of the electorate, pissed off Republicans. I thought, okay, now the Libertarians become that viable third party. They haven't capitalized. They're pretty much right back to where they were before, and so all those votes ended up just being a protest vote that didn't build the party. If Ballard gets on the ballot, try to say that 10 times fast. If Ballard gets on the ballot, he becomes the protest vote because he's a viable candidate. And so for Lori Schillings, who is going to be the Libertarian nominee for Secretary of State, she's really got to work now because the Libertarians become in immense danger of actually losing their ballot access. Man, there's so many tentacles to Ballard running. I love it. We're going to talk about it so much. We'll try to get him in here. We used to have him on the old show all the time. I love it. I love every single thing about it. Guys, let me tell you about Bramwell Mackay. They are awesome, and they have been a part of us before we even had an idea for a show. They've said, whatever you do, we're supporting you. We're here. We love you. Leaky chimney, water in the basement, cracks around the exterior of your home. Bramwell Mackay Property Services and Consultants is your authority for chimney repair, tuck pointing, foundation repair, crawl space to basement conversions, basement waterproofing, and more. Bramwell Mackay doesn't offer quick patches. Their team of 40-year master masons and industry experts address the root cause and provide solutions that last lifetimes. Your home is one of your biggest investments. Treat it that way. Bramwell Mackay, your masonry, foundation, and chimney specialists. All right. We're off and running. We're going. We're doing it. We're not going to a break just yet. Oh, no. I saw you, producer Jason, getting ready to hit that button. No, we're not going to a break just yet. Let's talk about what happened with AES, shall we? This is wild. So Fox 59, numerous other media outlets in Indianapolis had the story. This is a crazy story. So AES came out the other day as getting bought by Blackrock. Tens of billions of dollars to acquire AES. AES is the power provider for Indianapolis. It's a mega company. It's all over the country. AES, they're a huge name, and one of the areas they provide power for is Indianapolis. Of course, as we laid out yesterday, utilities are monopolies. They get granted those monopolies by the government, and then the only thing that stops them from raising rates is potentially the government, the IURC, the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, saying, no, you can't raise rates. That's it. And for the most part, past decade-ish, the IURC has been a rubber stamp. They've done pretty much whatever the utilities have wanted. So AES announces it's getting bought by Blackrock. AES has already had community meetings on the books because people are outraged over these rate increases, service issues, customer service issues, all sorts of things. So they'd plan these various community meetings across Indianapolis over a group of days, right? You come in, we want to hear what you have to say, blah, blah, blah. Well, then it gets announced that AES is getting bought by Blackrock, and they canceled the meeting last night. Now, AES is claiming they canceled the open house they were supposed to have last night due to threats. That's according to Fox 59. AES later said the company received, quote, violent threats through social media, and the messages has been turned over to internal security. Now, look, we don't want anybody to be put in any harm's way. We don't want anybody to have their life put at risk. But if you're AES, this is a horrible look. Horrible. Why? Because the perception from the public is you guys, these utilities, there's 5 investor-owned utilities in Indiana. And the perception from the public is that utilities are greedy. They're out to make money. They're weaponizing their monopoly given by the government against people. And people are reaching a crisis point in terms of paying their utility bills. That's the perception, especially with the 5 for-profit, shareholder-owned utilities in Indiana. AES, one of the biggest, if not the biggest. And for you to cancel that meeting that was already on the books after you have made this announcement that you are getting bought by this private equity firm that has a notoriously interesting reputation, to say the least, not positive in many circles, not well thought of in many circles. And I think everybody knows they're not buying you guys to make electricity better. They're not buying you guys to make electricity more affordable. They're buying you guys to make money. Lots and lots of money, which will likely hinge on repeated rate increases from the state of Indiana. For AES to cancel that community meeting, it is just a horrible, horrible look. And by the way, Fox 59 said, I think it was Fox 59, I read several articles on this, that people weren't alerted that the meeting had been canceled, so they showed up. Imagine like if you were taking time out of your busy day. Hey, I got kids, got wife, got job, I got to get home. No, hey, honey, you got to watch the 3 kids because I got to go to this meeting to learn about how we're getting screwed on our power bills. And the company just doesn't even show up. That is going to cause a lot of resentment. Not that there wasn't already a lot of resentment, hatred, anger. And it's part of a broader conversation, which the utility, and we have harped on this for a long time now. Utility bills in Indiana are completely out of control. The government has done a horrible job being subservient to these utility companies. And don't kid yourself about the donations, about the things that the utilities fund. Didn't it come out? Somebody correct me on this. Didn't it come out in the IEDC stuff that the nonprofit, part of that nonprofit that was set up for the travel, et cetera, was funded by the utilities? Didn't that come out? I'm trying to remember that. I think that's right. That in the IEDC, when the nonprofit that was set up by which they were doing all this international travel through, the major funders were utility providers, some of them. People see everything now, and rightfully so, as a rigged game. Anything that involves the government is a rigged game. And the utilities are a rigged game because the government gives them a monopoly. No chance to shop around, no chance to try to price shop, no chance to leverage anything. You have one person, you pay what they say, or they shut it off. And they don't see the government as being on their side. Okay, don't go anywhere. Very short break. As you know, these breaks are short. Not even enough time to use the bathroom, right? When we come back, there was a story yesterday that was a perfect example of how completely dumb the whole public education thing is, and really how dumb we are as a society. It's a story where everybody might be at fault. It happened right here in central Indiana. We'll talk about it when we come back. You're watching Rob Kendall Show.
Bramwell Mackay assists managers of multifamily and commercial real estate properties with exterior and structural condition assessment and end-to-end building wellness. Your consulting partners for water intrusion inspection and remediation, Bramwell Mackay handles historic restoration and repair, as well as modern repair needs. In Indianapolis, call 812-33-BRICK. That's 812-33-BRICK. 812-33-BRICK.
Hey guys, it's Rob Kendall. Thanks so much for checking out the Rob Kendall Show. And remember, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you own a business or you're in charge of making decisions for your business, we'd love to get to know you. We'd love to learn more about what you do and how here at the Rob Kendall Show, we can help you get your word out to a very loyal group of people. Because, you know, that's what we have with viewers on the Rob Kendall Show, a really loyal group of people. Send us an email, sales@robkendallshow.com, sales@robkendallshow.com. And I look forward to getting back in touch with you to learn more about your business and how the Rob Kendall Show can help you grow.
Are you a Clay County resident who is ready to be part of creating a brighter future for our citizens? Doug Cobb is running for county commissioner and will bring fresh perspective to the table. A local farm and business owner, he has skin in the game of our county's success. He knows that a great team can accomplish so much more than any one of us alone and is ready to create a brighter future for Clay County together. The committee to elect Doug Cobb approves this ad. Paid for by Linda Cheatham.
Rob Kendall Show. Don't forget our website, robkendallshow.com. You can follow me on Twitter, by the way, @RobMKendall, @RobMKendall. Okay, so before we get to this segment about something that happened yesterday in the public, involving the public education system, that just shows how ridiculous it all is. Public education, societies in general, it's almost one where like everybody's wrong on this, I feel like. I want to thank you guys for just a great first couple of episodes. You guys have been awesome at, first of all, subscribing, which is so important to us, sharing, telling people about us, tuning in live, tuning in on demand. Producer Jason, he is a stats wizard, should have been a statistician in addition to these various other Zen master qualities. And so, you know, obviously this stuff's all new to me. You can obviously go in and see how people listen, how long they watch for, where they come from. On average, you guys are watching this program for 40 minutes at a time. That's amazing. Like, I can't even begin to tell you how blown away I was by that. And by the way, if you're somebody considering sponsoring this show, that is catnip to you. That should be catnip to you, because that means people are staying through our announcements. They're hearing your messages. And so I can't thank you guys enough for how awesome you have been. And we got to grow this thing. That's what we're doing. This first week, it's all about growing right here on YouTube. And then, yes, the Apple, the Spotify, some other cool stuff, that's coming. We know. We've heard you guys. We're going to do that. But right now, we got to do it here. You guys have been amazing. You guys have been amazing helping us, like with the sound. We've messed with the sound a little bit. You guys say that's doing better. It's all a learn as we go process. Little engine that could. And you guys have just been so great, and I can't thank you enough. To those of you I also want to thank, because we're running that little promo there. If you're interested in supporting us and promoting your business, we want to help you. So many people have reached out about their business. It's been hard to get back to everybody. That's been great. It's such a joy to me to be able to learn about what you guys do, because this is a two-way street. This is a two-way relationship. You guys invest in me. I invest back in you. I care about you. I think that's part of why we've always been so popular. People know it's the real deal. I'm not bullcrapping you. And I care about you. I want to see you succeed in whatever you do. And if you own a business, I want to help make that business succeed. And every day I'm having multiple conversations with people who own businesses, learning about what you do. Sometimes there's just people we aren't probably going to be able to be the best fit for. And we say that. We will say that. Because if you're going to be supporting us, we want to try to deliver for you. And so coming up here in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be hearing some new people who are coming on board. They're behind us. They want to support us, promote their business. Right now, for these people who are supporting us, like Bramwell Mackay, even if you're not going to use their service or need their service right now, just let them know, please. That's one thing you can do for us, is just let them know. Just Google them. Bramwell Mackay, BramwellMckay. Let them know. Hey, I've heard you on Rob's show. Thanks for doing that. They've got a contact form there. That would mean a ton to us. And say, hey, if I need your services in the future with my home, I'm going to use you guys. Just let them know. They don't expect you to go take a bulldozer to your house just to call them, right? But that's the sort of stuff that really, really helps us out. These sponsors that are going to be coming on board, a lot of these people are very small business owners. A lot of them are independent people, and they believe in us. And so they don't have a ton of money to spend, promoting their business. But what they do, they're going to spend it with us. And so we need you guys to step up. And even if you don't need the service in the moment, contact them and let them know, hey, when I do, I'm using you guys because I heard you on Rob's show. I know I keep asking stuff of you guys, and if you guys know me, I'm like the last person to ask people for anything. But we have to do this right now because this is how we're going to grow. This is how we're going to succeed. This is how we're going to get all our debts paid off for all the stuff we had to buy to get this thing on the air. And that's how we're going to keep moving, right? That's how we're going to keep going forward, is by you guys. When we give you a little call to action, do it. We're not asking you to leave your house or anything like that. You're at your computers anyway or your phones anyway. That's what we need you to do. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you to all of you who have seen this, who are own businesses or run businesses, who have reached out. You guys are awesome. I love learning about you. If you're interested, and you guys know now, you don't get some sales guy calls you back. You get me. That's what I do. When I go home, when we get done here, when Jason tells me to get the hell out of the studio so he can work, I go home and I start making phone calls to people. And a bunch of you have been like, really? It was you? Of course. This is about us. This is about us doing this together, growing this together. Now, someday Jason may call you because he's pretty dynamic. But most of the time, it's going to be me. And it's been great to learn about you guys. If you want to have me contact you, learn about your business, see how we can craft a package to promote that. And like I said, we got a bunch of people that are coming on here real soon that you guys are going to love and the stuff they do. Sales@robkendallshow.com. Sales@robkendallshow.com is the email. Send me an email. Sales@robkendallshow.com. Tell me a little bit about what you do. Tell me a little bit about your business. and I'll get back to you, and we'll figure out a way we can do something that works for you. All right. Let's talk about this story about public education, shall we? Because this story, I actually covered it even before when I had the old Sunday show. That's how long this story's been going on for, all the way back to 2017, 2018. And it now has a conclusion, and the conclusion is completely ridiculous. So this involves where I live in Brownsburg, and I didn't pick this because it's where I live. It's because it's a ridiculous story, and it just shows how ridiculous the public education system is. And it was getting national media attention. So it would be, what's the word I'm looking for here? It would be neglectful of me not to cover it. There we go. Thank you. It involves the Brownsburg school system and a former, I believe he was a band and orchestra teacher by the name of John Kluge. And John Kluge resigned from the Brownsburg school system in 2018 over a policy that required him to use a student's preferred name and pronouns. Now, I believe this was for a transgender student. And this is in the wake of when the trans stuff was building up like never before, and that was front and center, the cause du jour of the media. And so in 2018, Brownsburg enacts this policy, I think it was actually in 2017, which said you have to use the preferred name of that a student wants and pronouns a student wants if the parents sign off on it. And Kluge went to the school system, and by the way, Fox 59 has the story. That's the one I'm using. Many other media outlets covered this. Kluge goes to the school system and says basically, hey, due to my religious beliefs, I'm not really comfortable in using a transgender student's preferred name or pronoun. And according to him at the time, the school agreed that he could call students by their last name. That was the compromise. He said he went to the principal, Brett DeGay, who was principal at the time. They said, okay, the compromise will be just call everybody by their last name and you're good. Smith, Jones, Watson. Okay, we're all good. Everybody's okay. Well, then in January of 2018, because I guess a bunch of students were mad that he wouldn't use their preferred names and pronouns, even though he was calling everybody the same name. Wasn't treating anybody differently, calling everybody the same name, the last name. A bunch of students got mad because he wasn't being subservient, basically, to what they wanted. They went to the school, and then the school in 2018, according to Fox 59, reaffirmed the policy that teachers had to call trans students by their preferred names, genders, other than what you were at birth. We get into that here in a second. Kluge then goes back to the school and is like, hey, I had this exemption. Do I still have this exemption to call people by their last name? The school then says, no, you have basically three options. Do what we say. Call Billy who wants to be Sally, Sally. Resign, or we're going to fire you. Kluge then resigns, and then after he resigns, tries to rescind his resignation. He resigns and says, no, wait a second, I don't want to do that. He then sued the school for religious discrimination, alleging that his rights were being violated, being forced to resign. So, long story short of that, there's a policy put in place that you got to call Billy Sally if Billy wants to be called Sally, and Billy's parents say that's fine. Teacher says, this goes against my religious beliefs. I don't want to call them Sally. School says, okay, makes a compromise. Just call her by their last name. Teacher says, great, fine, we'll do it. School then, because Sally gets mad, and they know what Kluge is doing, they're mad that Kluge won't be subservient to Billy wanting to be Sally. They then go back and they bitch at the school. And the school then goes, well, okay, well, everybody's got to call Billy Sally if Billy wants to be Sally, and Billy's parents sign off on it. And then they tell Kluge they've given the exemption to, you got to do it, resign, or you're fired. So he resigns, then tries to rescind the resignation. They won't let him do it. And then he sues the Brownsburg school system. Now, keep in mind, this is all the way back in 2018. Different Supreme Court, Trump is still president. You still got like Ruth Bader Ginsburg is still on the court at this point, right? Kluge lost at the district court level. District court rules in favor of the Brownsburg school system. He then appeals this to the Court of Appeals, 7th District, I believe. And They side with the district court judge. So he's lost twice. Then shortly after, in 2023 is when he lost at the appeals court, the Court of Appeals. Then shortly after that, the Supreme Court comes down with a ruling about public education. It's a different case, but it's basically the same case, or a very similar case, which says you do have to honor deeply held religious beliefs, make accommodations for deeply held religious beliefs by a teacher. So basically, that then throws out the previous two Court of Appeals opinion, the Court of Appeals opinion, the District Court opinion, and now the case can go to trial. So, what, 6-7 years of legal wrangling, all thrown out. Now the Supreme Court, with that ruling in a separate case, affirms the case involving Cluj can go to trial. And then right before it's supposed to go to trial, the school district settles with Cluj, which was the announcement yesterday. Would you like to guess the dollar amount that the taxpayers are going to be accountable for? $650,000. 7 years and $650,000 because the school system wanted to be woke. No money to help you with property taxes because the schools need it all, right? The schools aren't wasting any money. The schools are very responsible. Now, look, there's a different superintendent now than there was before. There's a different kind of head of the school board than there was before. But this is pathetic. And probably there's going to be some sort of insurance company that's going to back this up. It's not going to be like the taxpayers are just going to write a check. Schools have insurance. Generally, that's how a settlement gets reached. But that's going to raise the insurance premiums. Just like on your house, right? If you use it, your car insurance. There's going to be a financial ramification for the taxpayers because of this. The insurance companies, if indeed that's the way it goes, they don't just hand out money. There's going to be a punishment for this. 7 years and $650,000 because the school felt the need to appease insanity. Billy doesn't even know what he wants for lunch when he's 14 or 15 or 16. Billy doesn't know who he wants to date, what he wants to do for a job. And yet we're led to believe that Billy can make a decision if he's a boy that he wants to be a girl. And the school system went along with this. Now, what is fascinating to me was basically the school system's statement about this. The school system had an agreement. I think that's what's most frustrating. They had an agreement in which, hey, you have these deeply held beliefs, which were backed up later by the Supreme Court. Doesn't matter what happens to the lower court, right? We see this all the time. Cases that are decided at lower court, go to Supreme Court, get overruled. That's the law of the land. So ultimately, Cluj's beliefs and what he described, because of his deeply held religious convictions, were upheld at the Supreme Court, and they said, no, you need to make accommodations for that. The public sector needs to make accommodations for this. And to Cluj's credit, he tried to just say, look, I'll just call everybody by their last name. I'm not going to punish these people. I'm not going to single them out. And the school agreed. That's what's most frustrating. There was an agreement in place that should have worked for everyone. All we should expect is with government that they treat everyone equal. That is the most we should expect from our government. And hey, this guy has this deeply held religious belief. There's ways to, kind of verify that, or, if some guy's a Satanist and then he comes in and says something, you can go, nah. But clearly he felt this. He felt strongly about it. He didn't want to harm anyone. So he said, I'll just call everybody by their last name and we'll be done with it. I find it hard to be sympathetic to the school system in any of this because there was an agreement in place. The teachers are in charge. You don't like it? Too bad. There's lots of things in my life I don't like. Lots of things when I was in school I didn't like. I just did them because I was told, because adults are in charge. Adults are in charge. And now the taxpayers, in one form or another, are on the hook for this money because of the actions by the school system. Now, there's another side of this where it's like, I guess you could have just called them by the name they wanted. I guess there is part of me that says, well, the school is the boss. So if they told you to call them by their name and you refuse to call them by their name. Remember when I teased this up? I said, this is where it shows how dumb the public education system is and humanity as a collective, right? Like, I've been a business owner for most of my life. It's weird kind of being back on your own again. But I've also worked for people. So I've seen it through both eyes. And I'll tell you, and Jason will nod in agreement with this, there's numerous times over the years where we told somebody to do something and then they questioned it. And then maybe they didn't do it the way we told them to do it. Yeah, he's laughing because he knows exactly the people we're talking about here. And we told them very clearly, this is not a discussion. You work with us. We are in charge. We own this company. You do it the way we say or you're out. You don't want to do it the way we say? That's fine. Go do it somewhere else. You know how many broadcasting companies were over there at the time for those people to go to? None. So you know what they did? They did it the way we said. You know what? We knew they were pissed off at us. We knew they were saying bad things about us behind our backs. We didn't care. Do what we say. We're the boss. We write the checks. I've also seen it as an employee. Look, I worked for somebody for 9 years. Things happen all the time you don't agree with. You can raise your hand. You can make your case. End of the day, he who writes the check is the boss. And so you know what I did? What my employer told me to do. So then there's part of me that says, okay, the school is completely ridiculous about this. But then they are the employer. If they tell you, you got to call somebody Sally, then I think you kind of got to call them Sally. But then I go to the Supreme Court who said, no, you don't have to call them Sally. And ultimately, Kluge was proven right from a legal argument at the Supreme Court, who is the definitive ruler on legal issues in this country. You know, our tagline on this show is, we dislike all of these people equally. I think this is an example where we dislike all of these people equally. Because at the end of the day, as a taxpayer in that community, I'm going to end up paying for this. 7 years, $650,000, I'm going to end up paying for it. And look, this sort of crap is happening all over the place. We're always talking about when we pick topics to do. This crap is happening all over the place. This was just a national story. There is so much waste in government. There is so much just useless spending in government. And yet we were told we couldn't get property tax relief last year, meaningful property tax relief. Well, because the children might suffer. The schools might be in danger. The children could be harmed. Really? How did this help the kids? How did any of this that took place? How did not just letting the guy keep calling the kids by their last name? How did that harm anyone? That wasn't about the kids. That was about proving a point. And if you own your own business, okay, you can prove a point. But if you own a business that I pay for, business, which in case any government entity, school, town, county government, I'm a shareholder. I pay the taxes. Steal a quote from Diego Morales, I pay. I pay. And when I pay, I get the right to say if I think you're doing a crappy job, if you're wasting my money. And in this case, $650,000 just got completely wasted. All right, let's take a real quick break. When we come back, you guys have a fear of anything? You guys like deathly afraid of anything? I am deathly afraid of something. And I want to talk about it when we come back because it's something all of us do here in central Indiana. And there's a new study showing some people feel the way I feel about it. Maybe not as many as there used to be. But I want to know how you guys feel about it. I want to get your take when we come back. You're watching Rob Kendall Show.
Bramwell Mackay assists managers of multifamily and commercial real estate properties with exterior and structural condition assessment and end-to-end building wellness. Your consulting partners for water intrusion inspection and remediation, Bramwell Mackay handles historic restoration and repair, as well as modern repair needs. In Indianapolis, call 812-33-BRICK. That's 812-33-BRICK. 812-33-BRICK.
Hey guys, it's Rob Kendall. Thanks so much for checking out the Rob Kendall Show. And remember, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you own a business or you're in charge of making decisions for your business, we'd love to get to know you. We'd love to learn more about what you do and how here at the Rob Kendall Show, we can help you get your word out to a very loyal group of people. Because, that's what we have with viewers on the Rob Kendall Show, a really loyal group of people. Send us an email, sales@robkendallshow.com, sales@robkendallshow.com. And I look forward to getting back in touch with you to learn more about your business and how the Rob Kendall Show can help you grow.
Are you a Clay County resident who is ready to be part of creating a brighter future for our citizens? Doug Cobb is running for county commissioner and will bring fresh perspective to the table. A local farm and business owner, he has skin in the game of our county's success. He knows that a great team can accomplish so much more than any one of us alone and is ready to create a brighter future for Clay County together. The committee to elect Doug Cobb approves this ad. Paid for by Linda Cheatham.
Hey guys, thanks for staying with us. Rob Kendall Show. Don't forget, check out that website, bookmark it, robkendallshow.com. robkendallshow.com. We got the live links, the archive links, the transcripts, some of our favorite segments each day. Great segment on me dumping on Todd Young on the transcripts. So if you'd like to read it, it's even more glorious, I think, in print than it is in audio. Yeah, I went, it's like, we're not, second episode, I was very excited. Second episode, and we shred Diego and Todd Young. It's just like old times, right? The band is back together again. But you can check it all out, robkendallshow.com. Please make sure if you haven't, this is very helpful to us, subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends to do the same. Share this out there. We want to build this. Here in a little bit too, we're going to maybe read a couple comments from the chat. Reminder, you have to be a subscriber in order to chat. We have a very open policy on the chat. You don't have to like me. You don't have to say I'm doing great. We're not thin-skinned about that. You do have to behave like a member of decent society. Make it a place that other people want to be a part of. Make it a place that all the chatters feel welcome. And you guys have done a phenomenal job with that so far. I'm not saying anybody hasn't. Just saying those are the rules. Producer Jason, he's very, very quick with the dump button. So just behave. And thank you guys for being a part of the chat and being a part of with us. All right. So I want to talk about this fear that I have. And before I do that, though, I want to talk about this Senate race in Terre Haute. Guys, this is wild. Have you guys been following this? Now it's headed to court. Okay, so the Indiana Capital Chronicle has the article. Super lawyer Jim Bopp. You guys may have heard his name. He is a very famous attorney from Indiana. He has argued cases in front of the Supreme Court. He's a conservative activist, very well known. He is not taking no for an answer. So what I'm talking about, and I know we got into this on the on like some of the Facebook lives, but Brenda Wilson, she is a Vigo County commissioner. Yeah, I'm sorry, council member. She's in, I can't remember if it's council member or commissioner. Doesn't matter. Anyway, she's challenging incumbent Greg Good. So Greg Good was appointed. One of the senators, state senators, as often happens, quit in the middle of his term. It's a very common thing in the state of Indiana. It's a very bad thing. But guy quits in the middle of his term. Unless you have some serious health or family issue, you should not be allowed to quit your seat. You told people you want something for 4 years. I want to do this. You should have to see out the term. If you don't, and it ain't for medical or family issues, taking care of a loved one, you should have to give all the money you got paid back. If you tell somebody, you tell the voters, I want a job for 4 years, and you don't do that, out. Money back. But guy before him quit. Greg Good was caucused in. This is his first time up for election. So Brenda Wilson challenging him. Alexandra Wilson is also challenging him. Now, this is where this gets interesting. The people who are supporting Brenda Wilson have said that Alexandra Wilson's candidacy is shenanigans from the good people. Not G-O-O-D, G-O-O-D-E, the good people, the people supporting Greg Good. Because their last names are similar, and they're trying to create some sort of ballot confusion. Now, this is where Jim Bopp comes in. Jim Bopp says, I don't even want to address the shenanigans. I think Alexandra Wilson is ineligible to run because he's claiming that she was convicted of a felony. In the state of Indiana, you cannot run for public office if you've been convicted of a felony, which I want to talk about that in a second, too. I'm curious how you guys feel about that. So in 2010, according to Capitol Chronicle, Alexandra Wilson pled guilty in Vermilion County to a charge of resisting law enforcement. She was 19 years old. Her attorney is named Samantha Dewester. And Dewester, so this case was in front of the election board, which is why it's now in court. Bopp took this to the election board in Clay County and said she is ineligible to run. I'm sorry, not in Clay County. She took it to the Indiana election board, which is 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. He's the lawsuit is in Clay County, but took this to the election board, the state election board, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and he said she is ineligible to run because she's a felon. And so Dewester, who is Alexandra Wilson's attorney, told the Election Commission the original charge was a Class D felony. The judge accepted a plea agreement of a Class A misdemeanor with a year of probation. So Dewester, who is Alexandra Wilson's attorney, says it doesn't matter what she was charged with. Charging you with a felony does not make you ineligible to run for public office. It's what you plead guilty to or what you are convicted of. And she wasn't convicted of that. Now, this to me, and what I haven't seen anybody write about, of all the coverage of this, I don't understand how this isn't very easy to see. Either she pled guilty to a felony or she did not plead guilty to a felony. This should be very open and shut. Like, I would think Jim Bopp, someone of his skill set, legal mind, would be able to know whether she pled guilty to a felony or not. Now, this went in front of the Indiana Election Board, and it was a 2-2 split. The 2 Democrats said she can stay. The 2 Republicans said she has to go. Now, again, we talk about how a system designed to fail. What sort of governing body has an even number of members? Who does that? Any board which you want a result, you split that up. You say we need 5 members. 2 and 2, you're going to get splits all the time. And when you get a split, which happens frequently, whatever's currently in play is what stands. So in the case of Alexandra Wilson, she's on the ballot because she was on the ballot. She stays on the ballot. So now Bopp is headed to Clay County Court. He filed a petition Monday, according to the Capitol Chronicle, for a judge to overturn the Election Commission's actions and remove Wilson from the primary ballot. Here is what Dewester, the attorney for Alexandra Wilson, had to say. The findings of the Indiana Election Commission were based on the facts presented to them, state statutes, and common sense. I am confident in our position and stand by the decision to keep Alexandra Wilson on the ballot. So it's in court now. This is a big deal because, yeah, there's a chance. I mean, look, you're either voting for Greg Good or against Greg Good. And if you're voting against Greg Good, likely that vote was going to go to Brenda Wilson. And if there's somebody with the same last name who people don't pay that close of attention to, well, maybe they vote for this other woman. And maybe people just vote for her because they like her. It's fascinating to me, all of the effort being put into these state Senate races, and it all centers around the votes on redistricting. Now, look, I have said publicly, I don't think redistricting is this magical silver bullet that people think it is in the Republican primary. Polling overwhelmingly showed people were against redistricting. Most people are not as ideologically driven, especially on something like redistricting, that they don't really see how it affects them one way or another, because the Republicans repeatedly don't deliver, as the hardcore, Trump supporter people. I don't think revenge tour helps you win at the ballot box when it's an issue that doesn't resonate with people. But Turning Point USA, the Trump people, they put all their eggs in recruiting these candidates, all their eggs in that basket, and we'll see what happens. It's fascinating to me, though, this is wild, right? This is in court. You got allegations that they're recruiting this person to run. And again, I come back to this woman was allowed to run because the county party chairman signed off on her, which that rule is ridiculous to every county in the state. Did you know that? At every county in the state, there's a requirement to run for one of the 2 major parties. You have to vote in back-to-back, by back-to-back, I mean the most recent, 2 recent votes in a primary you've cast have to be of that party. If you have voted for a Democrat and a Republican in the primaries, like you're a Democrat, and you say, I saw the light, I voted for Trump, but in the Republican primary, you can't run for office. You're not eligible. Has to be 2 in a row, unless the county chairman signs off on you. And there is no criteria for the county chairman to sign off on you. 2 people could have identical circumstances, identical issues, and the county chairman could pick one. I like you. You're my neighbor. I like you. You've given money to the party. I like you, whatever, and you're in. And I don't like you because you're mouthy on Twitter. You're out. That's our election system in Indiana. That's how we decide who can run for public office. Elections, by the way, that all of us have to pay for. Elections that all of us have to pay for. Now, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Should a convicted felon be able to run for public office in Indiana? There's been a lot of conversation about voting across this country. How about running for public office? And I go back and forth on this because there's some people who commit heinous crimes who I don't want anywhere near a ballot box, making choices for who gets to represent me, much less running or controlling my life. But then there's people like this woman who had an incident, Alexandra Wilson, according to Capitol Chronicle and others, when she was 19 years old. Probably a poor act of judgment, whether it's a felony or a misdemeanor. And by all accounts has been a law-abiding citizen the rest of her life. Are we willing to say that some non-heinous crime that you did when you were 19 years old, that there's some dispute of if it was even a felony, should that prevent you from ever being a part of the legislative process, of the electoral process? I mean, people do crazy stuff all the time when they're young, things they're ashamed of, and they come out being great adults. You don't know anything when you're 18 or 19 years old. At least I didn't. You don't know anything. Now, thankfully, I didn't do anything that rose to the nature of felonious behavior or even misdemeanor behavior. But some people do. They're not killing people. They're not robbing banks. They're not swindling millions of dollars. They just do something stupid. And then they lead very productive, they're a high contributor to society, great parents, great employees or employers. Should those people be banned from ever running for public office? It just seems, it seems very petty to me. Now, I don't know how you would rectify that, because I don't certainly want somebody who is a cold-blooded murderer being an elected official. So I don't know. In the chat, and I'll try to read some of these chats here after we come out of our next break, see what you guys think about that. I'd be very curious. Should a convicted felon be able to run for public office in Indiana? Okay. Real quick, I want to talk about a fear I have, and there's some new data out on this fear, and I'm curious what you guys think about this. Flying. You guys know I call it the death tube. I hate to fly. I have had a phobia of flying. I've been in an airplane a handful of times my entire life. It has never been a pleasurable experience. And a new poll is out. This is a website called The Points Guy. It's a YouGov, TPG YouGov survey, so known quantity doing the survey. A majority of air travelers think that it is, for the most part, safe. However, 46% of flyers report, according to this YouGov survey, of being somewhat or very nervous while flying. What are you guys when you get on a plane? Look, I know my fear of flying is completely irrational. And by the way, we have one of the best airports, not only in the country, in the entire world. Here in Indianapolis, those people do a phenomenal job. My wife, she flies for her job. She has no problem with flying. She loves flying. Part of when we got married, I agreed to get on an airplane for her. That was one of my wedding gifts to her. I will torture myself on an airplane to Las Vegas and try to act like I'm not completely miserable the whole time. She was so lucky to have me. But my point of all this is, I know statistically flying is far safer than riding in an automobile. And I have no problem driving a car. Used to drive halfway across the country every 2 weeks, like clockwork. No problem whatsoever. Never worried about it. I know that was a terribly more dangerous thing to do, to drive in the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina with boulders that would literally fall off the side of the cliff. That was one of the worst things imaginable, by the way, when you would do those cross-country trips, and there would be a boulder and 40 would be down, and it would like add 2 hours to your trip because you had to go some roundabout way. There is really no good way to get to the East Coast. There is no good way to get to the East Coast. And 20 years ago, they were telling us, it's coming. No, there is no good way to get to the East Coast. But I know driving an automobile, because I'm around, like, when you're in an airplane, how often does an airplane hit another airplane? It like almost never, ever happens. But in a car, think of all the stupid people that are on the roadways. Think of all the stupid people that you are around. I see them every day. Every single day on my trip here to the studio. I say, what the hell's wrong with people? At least 10 times. I know in an airplane, once it's in, you're not going to run into another airplane. I know statistically, the percentages of having something go wrong with your plane are minuscule. But there's some block in my head where I think, okay, if I'm in a car, check engine light comes on, which you guys, some of you know about my car. It's amazing it doesn't come on more often. No power locks, no power windows. I barely have power, period. Every day when I start the car and it works, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Thank you. But if the check engine light comes on, I can just get off to the exit. And I can call someone to come get me. And they can fix my car. I have this phobia of I'm in the sky and the check engine light comes on the plane. And then what do? What exit ramp do you take there? I think because plane crashes are so horrific and they're so high profile that in my mind, it's like, if I'm going down, I don't want to go down like that. I want to go down. Like when I was a kid, I used to have nightmares about falling out of the sky. Did you guys ever have that? Nightmares about falling out of the sky? And it stayed with me. However, what's interesting is Americans actually think flying is getting safer. 74% of Americans think airline travel is now either somewhat, 36%, or very, 37% safe. Put them together. What do you get with that? 74%, yeah? Only 11% said flying was not safe at all or not very safe. So that's me, right? I'm in the 11%. I'm in the vast majority, the bottom 10% of people, right? Now, what's interesting is that's a huge improvement over last year when only about 27% of respondents said travel is very safe and 28% said they did not believe airline travel is safe at all. Well, what happened last year? Right out of the gate when Trump was president, remember there was that horrific, speaking of it almost never happens, it did. Remember that helicopter, that military helicopter flew into that plane? And then Trump made the big thing about, I'm going to fire this person and that person, because Trump always right. You got to say something first and then ask the questions later. And so, yeah, people were like, oh my gosh, our military planes, they're running into pedestrian planes. Oh my gosh. So that really doesn't surprise me. But I'd be curious. Let me know. When we come back, we'll read some of the comments from the chat. What do you guys think about flying? And what do you guys think about felons being able to run for public office in Indiana? We'll take a very short break. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. You're watching Rob Kendall Show.
Bramwell Mackay assists managers of multifamily and commercial real estate properties with exterior and structural condition assessment and end-to-end building wellness. Your consulting partners for water intrusion inspection and remediation, Bramwell Mackay handles historic restoration and repair, as well as modern repair needs. In Indianapolis, call 812-33-BRICK. That's 812-33-BRICK. 812-33-BRICK.
Hey guys, it's Rob Kendall. Thanks so much for checking out the Rob Kendall Show. And remember, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you own a business or you're in charge of making decisions for your business, we'd love to get to know you. We'd love to learn more about what you do and how here at the Rob Kendall Show, we can help you get your word out to a very loyal group of people. Because, that's what we have with viewers on the Rob Kendall Show, a really loyal group of people. Send us an email, sales@robkendallshow.com. sales@robkendallshow.com. And I look forward to getting back in touch with you to learn more about your business and how the Rob Kendall Show can help you grow.
Are you a Clay County resident who is ready to be part of creating a brighter future for our citizens? Doug Cobb is running for county commissioner and will bring fresh perspective to the table. A local farm and business owner, he has skin in the game of our county's success. He knows that a great team can accomplish so much more than any one of us alone and is ready to create a brighter future for Clay County together. The committee to elect Doug Cobb approves this ad. Paid for by Linda Cheatham.
Hey guys, welcome back. Rob Kendall Show. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe the YouTube page, the channel. That helps us out so much. And follow along on Twitter. I keep these fun-filled comments going all day long at Rob M. Kendall on Twitter, at Rob M. Kendall. Reading some of your comments from the YouTube chat. You guys are awesome. Don't forget, you got to be a subscriber in order to comment and keep it clean, keep it decent. You don't have to like me. That's not a requirement. W.M. Clark. Prawn's going to build a new superhighway to the East Coast. That's good stuff. We're talking about there's no good way to drive. I see what you did there. This little mid-states corridor humor. There's no good way to get to the East Coast. Talking about the felons. Should felons be able to run for public office? Nicholas Kurz says, if you're paying taxes, you should be able to vote and run for office. If you don't want to vote for them, don't vote for them. Dan Foy, nonviolent and 10-year wait. I like that. Mad Duck says, we have entirely too many unconvicted felons running the show right now. So keep commenting over there. You guys are awesome. Love you. Thanks for all that you do. Being a part each day of the Rob Kendall Show. All right. Let's talk about real quick the Texas election results last night, because I'm going to apply them to Indiana. To me, they were fascinating, and I think there's a couple things you can kind of get out of them. So Texas had their primary last night. Now, first of all, let me start with this. The idea of these runoff elections, to me, is ridiculous. It's a total waste of taxpayer money. Now, I'm against primaries being funded by the public anyway, but especially when you got to do a second primary. So what I'm talking about is in the state of Texas, if you don't get a majority, not a plurality, but a majority, so that's 50% plus one, it goes to a second primary election for the top two vote getters. So like if you, and then one of the elections we're about to talk about, you don't get 50%, you're not the winner. You got to go run again. Now, a lot of times the guy who, quote unquote, wins will win the second election, but not always. And I think that may happen in Texas here. We'll talk about that in a second. So there were a couple of big elections. They had their Congress elections, all the normal elections that you think of, Attorney General, et cetera. But the big one nationally that people were paying attention to was the U.S. Senate primaries. The Democrats and Republicans had contested Senate primaries to go against each other in the fall. On the Democrat side, it was James Tallarico. He is this guy. He was in the national news recently. I think he's a state senator in Texas. And he was in the national news because he was going to be on Colbert. And then CBS didn't allow him to be on Colbert because they were worried about the equal time clause, which says if you interview a political candidate and the other candidate requests it within a certain window of an election, if you're on a terrestrial TV or radio station, then you have to grant that equal time. They were worried they weren't going to be able to abide by that with his opponent, so they forced him to be on YouTube. And then what happened was, because he was on YouTube, he got all this national attention because it was like CBS is forcing this guy off the air, became the narrative. He got millions of views on this YouTube feed with Colbert, and a whole bunch of money came in. Tallarico, who's sort of seen like as the more moderate of the two, I'm not saying he is, but the perception is he's sort of a more mainstream Democrat. He was running against Jasmine Crockett. Now, many of you know Jasmine Crockett is a sitting member of the U.S. House of Representatives. She's wild. She's interesting. And she's very, very liberal. And she's very, very outspoken about her hatred and her dislike for President Trump. And in fact, wasn't one of her TV ads Trump saying mean things about her and her responding to them? And so the question was going to kind of be, where are the Democrats in Texas going to go? This far left woman who is very liked by their base, who is very outspoken, who is very combative, who is very come at you, or this kind of much more mild-mannered Tallarico, who is liberal. I mean, it's not like he's, it's not Ronald Reagan we're talking about here, but he's certainly not seen as combative or seeking conflict, or he's seen as more moderate. Which way are the Democrats going to go? And the polling was all over the map. There's a poll that would show Crockett up. There's a poll that would show Tallarico up. And so nobody had any idea which way this race was going to go. And last night, Tallarico beat the brakes off of Jasmine Crockett. And he got by beat the brakes. I mean, he got over the 50% threshold. He is the winner. He does not have to go through a runoff. And so I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, wow, the Democrats might be getting their act together. I mean, in the past, the Democrats, because their base is so far left, would have just gone, we're going with the ideologue. There's no ground for moderation here. And it appears maybe the Democrats want to start winning. Bring that back home to Indiana. Look at what the choice is in front of the Democrats here. On their Secretary of State side, you've got Beau Bayh, who is seen as that sort of middle of the road. He's already come out and said things like voter ID or the law of the land should stand. He's mainstream. He looks the part. He's got the name. He's raising tons of money. But he's got a left challenger. He's got a challenger from his left. Blythe Potter, I think is her name. And she's gotten some donations and is seen as a somewhat serious threat to him. And so you do wonder, will the Democrats here in Indiana, who have repeatedly nominated bad candidates for the offices that they're running for, will the Democrats finally say we'd rather win than sit in our own ridiculous moral superiority and sit with 10 members in the state Senate and a supermajority in the House as well, 10 out of 50 in the Senate, and 30, I think it's 70-30 or something like that in the House? Would we rather sit in this fake moral high horse stuff and have no power, or would we finally start nominating people who would like to win? Guys like Fetterman, who are maneuvering down the middle. Guys who can win in swing states, which Texas is. Guys who can potentially win in red states, which Texas kind of is. I mean, people say, well, Rob, Texas is red. Yeah, it votes red, but it's trended more purple. Certainly Democrats could win in Texas. They have won in the past. So when I say it's a swing state, I don't mean it's not Pennsylvania, but I certainly also don't think it's Mississippi. Democrats in Texas said we would rather have a chance to win than just have somebody who wants to say ridiculous things and fight and things that appease us. Do you want to be successful, or do you want to have fake happiness? Because then you'll be miserable for 6 years when Crockett gets smoked by the Republican. And it appears in Texas, they've said we'd like to win. Good on them. Good on the Democrats. Hopefully, Indiana's Democrats do the same thing. You say, well, how could you say hopefully? Because I want the Democrats to be competitive. The reason the Republicans are so bad in this state, behave the way they do with the tax increases, the growing of government, all of this stuff that we talk about all the time, they don't fear the Democrats. The Republicans know, I get through my primary, I'm in. Doesn't matter. I mean, there's a handful of districts in our state that's not true. But everything else, easy cheesy. I want the Democrats to be competitive because I want the Democrats who make the Republicans fear losing. Fear the idea that if we don't put the citizens first, if we don't put the citizens ahead of the corporate interest, the donors, the lobbyists, that we could have ramifications. Look, I'm cheering for the Democrats to get their act together this year. Now, my question is, since I always vote in Republican primaries and I was an elected Republican and I espouse Republican ideals every day, the actual things they write down, but I just said I'm cheering for the Democrats to be competitive, does that make me a Republican in bad standing? Would my candidacy be challenged? Can you imagine that? We're challenging the candidacy of Rob Kendall, who has voted in every single Republican primary since 2010. Every single one. Municipal and the regular elections. We're also challenging Rob Kendall, who espouses the written down Republican ideals every single day. And he is mean to us because we don't adhere to those ideals. I would love to see. I may just run for public office because I know somebody would challenge it. I might just do that someday. just to see what the challenge would actually be. We would get so much media attention out of that. That'd be great. Then on the Republican side in Texas, something interesting happened over there. So there were 3 people running. There was Ken Paxton, who is the Attorney General, John Cornyn, who is the longtime incumbent senator, and a guy by the name of Wesley Hunt, who I believe he was a U.S. representative. And so in a 3-way race, Paxton was seen as the conservative. Firebrand, a lot of baggage with him, though. A lot of baggage. Cornyn, the establishment candidate, but not liked by the right. The Trump people don't really care for him. And then this Wesley Hunt guy who he was a somewhat distant third. And that's the way the election sort of bore out. He didn't do embarrassing. Like he didn't get 1% of the vote, but he was never seen as getting enough traction to be a viable competitor. And so ultimately, neither Paxton or Cornyn got the 50%. So now this heads to a runoff. So now the taxpayers have to pay for another runoff. Now, I did not see the final vote tally as I went to bed late last night. Cornyn still had a lead over Paxton. Now, that doesn't matter. Once they run again, everybody starts at 0, and it's really where those Wesley Hunt voters are going to go. They're going to determine the election. But I did think, at least for the purposes of this election, the one we're talking about now, even on the Republican side, the establishment candidate did for now better than, unless that flipped there at the end since I last saw it, but I went to bed really late last night. I was not going to let that Todd Young transcribe not get up. I was very proud of that. Anytime we rip on Todd Young, the Duke of Spendenberg, we're going to get that up on the website. But the point is, sort of like with the Democrats, now not to the same extent, but the Republicans looked at this and said, look, okay, so we have this one guy in Paxton who if we're conservative, I probably agree with him more than Cornyn. Cornyn's been there forever. Kind of like, go home type of guy. It's run its course. But he's probably got a better chance of winning a general election in a purple tilting state. He's probably got a better chance of winning the election than Paxton does because of all the baggage Paxton brings with him. And so I just found that fascinating. And because we have our own Republican primaries here this year, right? All of these challengers to the Greg Good, Spencer Deary, all of those people that voted against redistricting, the Turning Point USA people, they found candidates. They're running candidates. Will they be able to beat the establishment? Where will the voters go? How will they decide? Will they be like Texas to say, well, at least for now, we kind of would rather win. Both Republicans and Democrats said we'd rather win than have our ideologies appeased. And so I thought that was fascinating. All right. Let me tell you guys about my friends at Bramwell Mackay. These guys are awesome. They've been with us from the beginning. They love us. They love what we do. They're here to support us. Please support them. Masonry color mismatch. Previous repair catching your eye. Not happy with the brick color on your home and ready for a total makeover? Bramwell Mackay Services and Consultants offers specialized masonry, staining, and recoloring. Whether you want to seamlessly blend repairs or completely transform your home's exterior, want to build something new? Bramwell Mackay's 40-year master masons design and construct custom patios, sidewalks, outdoor summer kitchens, archways, entryways, and more. Bramwell Mackay, that's BRAMWELLMCKAY, beauty built to endure. And like I said, we're asking you, and we got more sponsors coming on next week. These people are helping us get this thing off the ground. Even if you don't need these people right now, just shoot them an email. That's why I spelled it out for you. Bramwell Mackay, BRAMWELL, BRAMWELLMCKAY. You can look them up on Google, find them there, send them an email. I got a contact for them. They're just, hey, thanks for sponsoring Rob. If I need something, I'm going to call you guys. Thanks for doing it. That will help us so much. These people need to know that you're hearing this. They see the numbers. They're very impressed, but they need to know you're hearing this. So you can do that for us. That would be great. All right, one more thing I wanted to get to before we take our final break today. Mortgage rates. This is fascinating to me. So mortgage rates in Central Indiana, by the way, WRTV 6 has the article. Mortgage rates in Central Indiana are under 6% for the first time since September of 22. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. 6%. Now, that may not sound like a big deal, but it is. I'm about to tell you about how the math works on this. For the past 3.5 years, mortgage rates have been between 6 and 8%. Now, we've talked about how the Fed has been cutting interest rates. That is the reason the mortgage rates have gone down, the rate at which banks can borrow money, and then not always, but sort of there's a correlation that if banks can borrow money at a cheaper rate, they can lend it to you at a cheaper rate. Doesn't always happen, but that's generally the way it works. That's the way it's working right now. So a 30-year mortgage rate was last under 6% September 8th of 2022. Now, this is what's interesting. WRTV6 ran the numbers, okay? And they compared an 8% mortgage rate to a 6% mortgage rate. These numbers are incredible, how much money this actually is. Now, these numbers that I'm about to read you do not include taxes, homeowners insurance, or mortgage insurance. This is just the mortgage payment itself. So you got to, the price would be higher, right? The what you pay would be much higher because you got to factor all those things into it. This is just the payment itself. So they picked $300,000 is the average sale price of a home in central Indiana. So they picked $300,000, nice round number. And they took 5% down. So a 30-year mortgage on $285,000 at 8% interest would cost you about $2,466 a month. So if you had a mortgage for a $285,000 home at 8%, you would pay $2,466 per month. At 7%, that monthly payment drops $200, more than $200 in fact, to $2,271. And if you get to 6%, it falls to $2,083. So that 2% over the last 4 years, that's $400 a month. $4,800 a year. Multiply that out over 30 years. What is that? That's $150,000, something like that. It's a staggering amount of money. Look, I see these, and I'm one of those low mortgage people. I got in before the rates started going up. Yeah, I'm a bit of an expert in the field myself. And I see these totals, and I think about like what I'm paying, and not exact numbers there that they're using, but not far off. And then I think about what I'm paying because of the much lower rate. And it really is it's a big problem right now. You talk to the real estate people, you talk to mortgage people, a lot of people have been stuck in their home, which we told you in 2020 was going to happen. When they were cutting those interest rates, we said, okay, sure, you're getting a great deal now because even though the price is going up with the mortgage rate cut, you're getting a great deal, but you're stuck. You're going to be stuck because, one, you're going to have trouble selling that house for what you paid for it because you paid an inflated rate based on a lower mortgage. And if you sell that home and you go anywhere that involves you having to pay money, you're going to pay so much more for that money, you're probably not going to be able to do it. I've had several friends who have struggled with that, where they've made big money on their home, but the house they wanted to move to cost more money and they couldn't do it because of the price of money. And people have largely ended up stuck in a lot of the cases, their homes, even if their families have grown, et cetera, over the past 5 or 6 years, because they can't afford to sell the house and buy one that they want because of the cost of money. So fascinating stuff. Mortgage rates going down in central Indiana. All right, we'll take our final break. Long segment coming up to wrap up the show. You're watching Rob Kendall Show.
Bramwell Mackay assists managers of multifamily and commercial real estate properties with exterior and structural condition assessment and end-to-end building wellness. Your consulting partners for water intrusion inspection and remediation, Bramwell Mackay handles historic restoration and repair, as well as modern repair needs. In Indianapolis, call 812-33-BRICK. That's 812-33-BRICK. 812-33-BRICK.
Hey guys, it's Rob Kendall. Thanks so much for checking out the Rob Kendall Show. And remember, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you own a business or you're in charge of making decisions for your business, we'd love to get to know you. We'd love to learn more about what you do and how here at the Rob Kendall Show, we can help you get your word out to a very loyal group of people. Because, you know, that's what we have with viewers on the Rob Kendall Show, a really loyal group of people. Send us an email, sales@robkendallshow.com. Sales@robkendallshow.com. And I look forward to getting back in touch with you to learn more about your business and how the Rob Kendall Show can help you grow.
Are you a Clay County resident who is ready to be part of creating a brighter future for our citizens? Doug Cobb is running for county commissioner and will bring fresh perspective to the table. A local farm and business owner, he has skin in the game of our county's success. He knows that a great team can accomplish so much more than any one of us alone and is ready to create a brighter future for Clay County together. The committee to elect Doug Cobb approves this ad. Paid for by Linda Cheatham.
Hey guys, welcome back. Rob Kendall Show. Follow along, robkendallshow.com. Transcripts from our favorite segments there. We've got some cool stuff coming to robkendallshow.com. And again, thank you to everybody who stays with us throughout the course of the day. Like, share, and subscribe. That's my new motto. Like, share, and subscribe. 7 cents on the line for me if you like, share, and subscribe. But thank you guys. In all seriousness, it means a lot. You guys have been so great the first several days, telling your friends, telling your people, letting us know we are here, and we need to grow this thing. We got to get more people involved. We want this to be a show. We want this to be a podcast that people all across Indiana are going to consume. You notice these stories we're doing, we're trying to hit all over the place, trying to talk about things that hit the entire state. Was one of the things when spent the month and a half off, started thinking about what do I want to do next? How do I want to do it? And I said, whatever I do, it's got to be something that goes across the state. Because what we were finding over and over again was, hey, the 15 or 20 counties you can hear me in, great. We're fabulous. But then, there's 92 counties, right? 92 minus 20 is 72. There's 72 counties. Whatever we say or do just doesn't exist. We got to change that. We got to get new people watching our show, listening to our show, being a part of our show. Because we got to get into those counties and get those people educated and passionate and fired up. That's why sharing what we do is so important. Just, take the feed, the link, share it. Hey, here's Rob. He's great. Give him a chance. Give him a shot. See what you think. It's all local. Tell people that. People love local stuff. We're dependent on you guys. We're not going to be running TV ads. We're not going to be running billboards. We're dependent on you guys to help us grow this thing organically. And you're doing awesome. But keep at it with us. We got to get this across the state. And I want to be just as influential in Fort Wayne or in Evansville as we have been in central Indiana. And so I'm counting on you guys to help me pull that off. Tell people they can go back and watch the show. And yes, we're coming to Apple. We're coming to Spotify. We got a guy. Those things are coming. But right now, here's where we are. And we can't thank you guys enough for being a part of this show and telling your friends to be a part of this show every single day. Want to also real quick thank producer Jason doing his usual outstanding job. Couldn't do it without him. And don't forget, he's a very accomplished author. You can find his books on Amazon. Just search Jason Dozier. It will buy him a lunch. Buy him a lunch. All right. Gas prices. The big question, and we talked about this on our debut episode. The first segment, in fact, we did on our debut episode. How much pain are you willing to endure over Iran? Because we talked about in dealing with Iran, there's really two viable options. Negotiations are not an option because you can't negotiate with people who hate you. You can't negotiate with people who don't have a shared commonality, a shared interest. How many times have we tried over 50 years? We tried everything, the carrots, the sticks, none of it works. So you really just have two options. Ignore them. And, you can try to put some level of economic pressure through your allies, et cetera, but that's just not going to affect them. They don't care. So ignore them or do what Trump's doing now, which is try to take them out. Those are really the two, in dealing with Iran, viable options. And there are merits to both sides. As we said, I think if your goal is to rid the world of the largest state sponsor of terrorism and try to get something productive that doesn't want to harm us, Trump's approach now is great. It's the right approach. But, and also a very valid point, is if you don't want people to feel immediate pain, if you don't want loss of American life, if you don't want financial crisis across the globe, then doing nothing is the easier approach. And we're seeing this now based on the rise in gas prices. And look, this is why people mess with the United States. I mean, let's just be honest. People mess with the United States because they think the people of the United States are weak. They'll eventually fold. We don't want to be inconvenienced. That's why we buy all our stuff from foreign countries. We don't want to pay more for stuff. That's why we buy all our stuff from foreign countries. So many of these dictators, these world leaders, they just believe they can outlast the United States. They believe that whatever they do will eventually fold and go, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to pay more for our gas. So according to CBS, gas prices across the U.S. jumped 11 cents overnight once the war with Iran came into full focus and continued to spread. So this would have been Monday night into Tuesday. And it pushed the average cost of gas nationwide to $3.11 a gallon, according to AAA. Now, I will tell you, I drive around central Indiana, obviously coming into the studio and home each day. I paid under $3, but there was only one place I found that was under $3. Now, I got really lucky the day before. I filled my wife's car up for $2.57. How about that? It's a pretty good deal, right? And I went home and bragged about it, and she was like, I don't care at all. Like, why am I always the one that cares about the money in this house? You will care someday. That's your inheritance. When I kick the bucket, you'll care someday. Kidding aside, gas prices are a big deal. And you think about, if it was $2.57, which it clearly was last week, and now let's just say it's $3.10. That's 43.53 cents a gallon. You have this. I know many of you have much larger tanks than this, but just for argument's sake, 10-gallon tank. I mean, I don't think unless you drive a golf cart like me, anybody has a 10-gallon tank. But that's $5.30 every time you fill up. You do that twice a week, let's say. It's $10.60 a week. $10.60 a week times 52 weeks. You're $550, $60. It adds up, right? If this is sustained, it adds up over time incrementally. Now, think about if you got the 20-gallon tank, or you're not driving a golf cart like me that gets 40 miles to the gallon. You're driving a truck or any of those, the school buses. All of these things, they're much bigger deals. School buses are diesel, but it gets affected too. You get what I'm saying. The gas price thing will affect this country. There are no freebies when it comes to international conflicts. There is no, we just do it and we're done with it and we're out of there. If you actually want to make sustained change. Now, like with Venezuela, they didn't really make sustained change. They got Maduro, but Maduro's peeps are still running the show. It's still the same group that's in charge. So if you want sustained change, which is what appears Iran is all about, we're going to feel pain. And I'm not saying one way or another. I'm open to both arguments. I do believe the Iranians are actively trying to harm Americans. I believe they are the, if not one of the, if not the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. And I believe they would hurt us financially, physically. But I also hate paying $3.10 for gas. So get ready. Get ready, Bow. Because it's going to be front and center here very soon. I wanted to talk about bad government for a minute, shall we? Shall we wrap up our time together, or almost wrap up our time together today by talking about bad government? This story comes from the Indiana Capitol Chronicle. And you guys know I love the Indiana Capitol Chronicle. I'm good friends with Nikki Kelly, who's the head honcho over there. Hopefully Nikki will be back with us very soon. I know you guys loved her segments talking about the week that was in Indiana politics and government. Hopefully she'll be back with us very soon. She's a great reporter. She's been a great reporter for a long time. Capitol Chronicle does phenomenal work. And if you haven't, I encourage everybody to bookmark their website, indianacapitalchronicle.com. They have all sorts of stuff, arguably the best day-to-day coverage of what's going on in the State House in our entire state. The Indiana Capitol Chronicle was doing an investigation on how much execution drugs cost in our state. So under Eric Holcomb, the execution drugs were shrouded in mystery. They would not give information out primarily about cost. They're also trying to get the manufacturer, but news agencies were trying to find out how much does this thing cost, which is a very valid question. If I'm paying for it as a taxpayer, I have every right to know how much I'm paying and what I'm paying for on everything. There's no reason, if you're taking my money to pay for something, that I shouldn't get to know everything about the cost associated with that. And yet, under the Holcomb administration, they were very guarded about giving out information. The public records request, not in many cases, not complying with the public records request. So this leads us to now. The Capitol Chronicle was trying to get information on what the execution drug cost. How much? Where did it come from? Now, there's a state law that bans the manufacturer. Not bans, but they don't have to give you the manufacturer. And that's understandable. The manufacturer would say, look, I'm doing something to help the state. Now, they're helping. They're not running a soup kitchen. They're getting paid. But I'm doing a service for the state. I don't want my business to be protested because I did something to help the state. And these drugs are hard to get. So the state passed a law that said you do not have to disclose who made the drug. I get that. No problem with that whatsoever. But there's nothing in state law that says that you don't have to reveal the cost. And so the Capitol Chronicle said, we want to know how much these drugs are costing. And a Marion County judge on Friday finally issued a ruling in this case because the Capitol Chronicle couldn't get the information they wanted from the state. They took them to court. And the judge granted summary judgment and found that the corrections officials in Indiana violated Indiana's public access law by improperly withholding information. Marion Superior Court Judge Clayton Graham ruled that the Indiana Department of Correction failed to respond to the Capitol Chronicle's June 24th public records request with a reasonable time and wrongly denied access to records showing how much public money Indiana spent to obtain pentobarbital for executions. Now, as part of this, I believe the Capitol Chronicle is going to get reasonable attorney's fees. So we as taxpayers are going to pay for this. We paid for somebody to represent us. Is that Rokita? That might have been Rokita. Well, you're paying for it with Rokita too. But we paid for somebody to represent us in court, and now we have to pay the Capitol Chronicle because the state wouldn't give over basic information about how our tax money is being spent. Think about that. It's our money. The government takes it from us. They just take it. They don't ask, right? You don't have an option to pay taxes. Here, you owe this, pay this, or you get in big trouble. Well, I want to know how my tax money is being spent. Nope, can't do it. The judge ruled in favor of the Capitol Chronicle because he said that the DOC only provided a heavily redacted $900,000 cost figure to the plaintiffs after being sued. He added the information was released without sufficient explanation or context. It should not be this hard to get information. Now, and this pains me to do this, but to Braun's credit, Mike Braun, the new governor, they have been more open about this information. They have been able, Capitol Chronicle got this information from the Braun administration after he came into office. There has been $1.275 million spent on pentobarbital since February of 24. So it seems like at least now the government is being more open under Braun about telling people how much of their tax money is being spent. And that's a good thing. But it's a basic thing. You have the right to know. I have the right to know how our tax money is being spent, whether it's $1 or $1 million or all points in between. You deserve full transparency about how that money is being spent, how it's being utilized. Because in the case of the execution drug, correct me if I'm wrong, memory serves me, some of it went to waste under Holcomb. They didn't use it. They lost it. It was just wasted money. We have the right to know that. It also does, once again, give validity to the debate that has taken place in this state recently about execution methods in Indiana. There's been a real push to change some of our execution methods. Cost has been at the center of that. I think that gives some level of validity to people making those arguments. Doesn't make them right. Doesn't mean all their proposals are great. It does mean, however, we spend a lot of money on execution drugs in the state of Indiana. But the bigger story here is it shouldn't be like this. If the news asks you for information and you're a government agency, give it to them. If something's going to make you look bad, that's on you. Don't do stuff that's going to make you look bad as a government agency. And then the media won't have anything to write about what might make you look bad. The media is the watchdog for the public. It's one of the things we talked about, me lamenting the lack of reporters that are now available, the lack of news outlets putting emphasis on people covering the State House. One of the reasons our governance has gotten so bad is because we don't have as many people covering these politicians anymore. Many news agencies have one, if any, person who's there at the State House. I'm talking about the people here in central Indiana. It's why we need to support those organizations that are. I get this all the time from people. Well, the Indy Star, they got liberal columnists. Yeah, but they do a nice job reporting. I cannot read the opinion pager. You know, I read my buddy James Briggs all the time. If he writes something I disagree with, which is often, I just laugh at him and go about my day. I'm capable, and we should all be capable of reading people we disagree with, and it not meaning we don't want to consume anything else these people do when they're putting out quality work that helps us, in this case, learn about our government, learn what's going on. Same thing with the Capitol Chronicle. People get mad about the Capitol Chronicle's opinion section. It does tilt more liberal. Doesn't bother me at all. My mind is not going to be warped because I read somebody's opinion that I don't agree with. Yours won't either. And so we need to support all of our brothers and sisters in the media who are covering the State House, whether they're from a professional organization, a nonprofit, these independent journalists who are out there. We got to get behind these people because there's fewer and fewer people making the investment, taking their own time, making that a career to say, hey, I'm going to hold government accountable. I mean, the county newspaper industry, the county media industry, it's dying. County newspapers going by the wayside. County radio stations hanging on by a thread. Not good. We need somebody to cover the city council meetings. We need somebody to go to the county commissioners meeting. You need somebody to be at the school board meeting. Because when it's all said and done, the local stuff is what affects you most of all. The local stuff, from your taxes, land use, how your community looks. And we just don't have people there covering it for the most part anymore. And we don't have people covering the State House. All right. One of the things I wanted to ask you guys as we're rebuilding this airplane, we're finally at the point where we feel like we've gone long enough and not broke anything that we're going to start having some guests come on. And one of the things I'd like to know from you guys, you can put in the YouTube chat, you can whatever, who would you like to see me interview? Who would you like to say, that's very interesting? It could be somebody we had on the old show that you really enjoyed hearing. It could be somebody that, hey, we never got to hear from. This is a clean slate for us. And there's people we like who we're going to have back on because they provide really good content, really valuable information. But we can do whatever we want now. And so I'd love to hear from you guys and somebody maybe that I haven't thought of, maybe people that haven't been at the forefront of my thinking. You know, who are they? What do they do? Why would you like to hear that about that person? Because we want to make this a show that you guys want to share. That's a key. Not just listen to, but share. Show that really holds your interest. And now that we can do more long-form segments than we were able to do in the past, it's going to give us a chance to do interviews that are shaped up a little differently. It's going to give us a chance to do conversations that go a little deeper than what we had before. And so I'd love to hear from you guys about, in the YouTube chat, we monitor that. Jason monitors it. Who you'd like to hear from, where you'd like to see us go. Also, if you guys have stories that you want us to cover, let us know about it. We may not and probably won't be able to get to all of them. But if there's news stories that come out from your town or county paper that's interesting, let us know about it. Tell us about it. If there's a topic that's not getting covered, remember, Jason and I are the guys that took down the Mid-States Corridor. We know how to operate heavy machinery when it comes to investigating things or looking into things or interviewing people. You don't want me anywhere around actual heavy machinery, but when it comes to doing this stuff, we're pretty good at it. We want to know about that. This show is about you guys. It's about creating an environment and a community that you guys want to grow with. And you may not love every interview, but some people are, and we want those people to share. And we want to keep people happy here. That's a great thing about the freedom we have now. We have the ability to do a lot of stuff, a lot of really cool stuff. Some of it will be a swing and a miss, but I think we're gonna get a lot more home runs than we are strikeouts. So somebody mentioned this to me the other day, and once upon a time I had a show that was pretty popular years and years ago, and I used to end it with, where do we go from here? And it was a once a week show. And the person told me, they go, man, I so miss you doing that. And really the final couple of minutes of any program, Talk about where do we go from here. The 2 hours we've spent together today, what did we learn? Where do we go from here? It's like a Mr. Rogers type of thing or something, right? Isn't that like when Mr. Rogers, okay, kids, where do we go from here? But the guy said, he goes, man, I used to love that because you sort of, encapsulated everything. You sort of summarized everything of what did you talk about today? And where, and more importantly, how do you guys take that and go into your own lives throughout the rest of the day? Because that's the goal, right? To get information out, to give you things you can't get anywhere else. So you'll talk about this stuff. That's what matters most. So I'm going to give this a shot. It may be totally horrible, but going forward, going to try to end the shows with, where do we go from here? So where do we go from here? Big story today, Greg Ballard running for Secretary of State. And I think where we go from here with that is it gives us for the first time really in Indiana history, a super viable third-party option running for a major public office. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you should be excited about that. Unless you're just such a loyalist homer that you can't wear anything but red or blue, you should be excited about that. Because the two-party system, not working. Two-party system, colossal failure. Look at the clown that's our Secretary of State right now. Is that working for you? The hiring of family members, the $90,000 car, the 10-day trip to a foreign country, and he won't tell you who pays for it, and then he starts shouting, I pay! The guy comes unglued anytime you talk about it with him in public. Fake news! That's our Secretary of State. Oh, and the giving of the no-bid contracts people give to his campaigns. Like, is that what you want? Is that working for you? Look at how our government is run, period. Look at who our governor is. Like, the radio guys have to go shut down his pet project, his multi-billion-dollar pet project that the people down there hate, and most people can't see any benefit other than to him and his trucking and distribution buddies. Like, is that working for you? What's the harm in having a viable third-party candidate running for major office? That would be my question to you. If you're like, well, I'm red no matter what, or I'm blue no matter what. What's the harm in having a viable third-party candidate run for public office? How could that be anything but good? Another voice, another set of views, another person trying to hold our politicians accountable? Look, I'm not endorsing anyone. I'm not telling you to vote for anyone. What I am saying, though, is I think it would be beneficial for all of us, for as many people as possible, to know that Greg Ballard is running, to learn his story, to learn what he stands for. Again, this is not an endorsement of Greg Ballard. It's not an endorsement of anyone. I think we can go ahead and just shove Diego to the side. I think he's tapped out in this conversation. But of the remaining people, it's not an endorsement of anyone. And who knows, Diego may not even be the nominee. But whether Diego's in or not, it's great that we have somebody with some name ID, somebody with some gravitas, somebody with some success at the ballot box, going in to the campaign, not being beholden to either of the parties. That's great, because at the end of the day, whether Greg Ballard wins or not, and look, I've said it at the start of the show, I'll say no, I don't think he has a chance to win. But I think he can be a very important figure in Indiana history. I think he can have a profound impact on the future of our state because of the people who may run if he does well. The people who may see this and go, okay, he did it. Now I can do it. And if Greg Ballard does well, maybe somebody really good will run as an independent for governor. Do you ever think about that? That if Greg Ballard does well, maybe somebody really good as an independent will run for U.S. Senate in a couple of years when Todd Young's back on the ballot. We have the ability to hold these Republicans accountable. The Democrats, they're not really going to do it on their own. They just can't get out of their own way. Occasionally they get a decent candidate like Beau Bayh, but for the most part, they're not going to do it on their own. We need this as a state. We need a viable, robust third-party option. We've tried the Libertarians. Love my Libertarian friends. That just as a political party, and there's many fine Libertarians, by the way. But as a party, they've been at it for a long time, and they can't get past the 2-3% numbers. Got to come from somewhere. Greg Ballard could be the catalyst to that. So where we go from here today, tell people that this is going on. Talk to them about it. See if you can get other people motivated to be more engaged in the political process because an independent voice is there. I think you'll find that very beneficial. All right, that is going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't, please like and share, and most importantly, subscribe the feed. Let people know that we're here. We got the podcast that'll be going up. Tell people about that. Thanks to producer Jason doing his usual great job. We will see you tomorrow. You've been watching The Rob Kendall Show.